Ant-Man. I can't believe we live in a world where we have a movie called Ant-Man and it's a good movie. I mean, just think about that for a second. The hero is Ant-Man. I mean, wow. I think this movie is a true testament to just how far Marvel has come with that they can do anything. They can literally do anything. That they pulled it off. I mean, Ant-Man. It's not about the fact that Ant-Man is a weird character. We already had Guardians of the Galaxy. That's weird. But Ant-Man's power is that he can shrink to the size of an ant. But it works. But they were able to make a cool, fun superhero heist kind of movie out of it. And it's a good comedy. It's a good comedy. Has good action scenes, but the action is more focused on the heist because they treat this movie like a Mission Impossible superhero movie. And it's cool like that, and it works. I think the biggest thing is when I came out of this movie, I did enjoy it, but I didn't come out thinking it was the greatest film ever. Like, I thought it was just, there's another fun addition in the whole Marvel MCU timeline. But it is a film that I realized the more I rewatch it, the more I appreciate the film for being so distinct and being so different from the other MCU films. I mean, it all comes down to even the main lead, Paul Rudd, as Ant-Man. I mean, the overall tone of this movie has that, like, grounded, realistic comedy kind of vibe. Like I Love You Man, or any of those Seth Rogen films. Like, that's what this movie has. Imagine a Seth Rogen comedy, but it's a superhero movie and stars Paul Rudd as the superhero Ant-Man. But it works because we've never had that before. We're so used to superhero movies, being larger than life, being so serious and dramatic and in that way. And here's a movie that's just this lighthearted, somewhat grounded comedy with a character like Paul Rudd. And the thing with Paul Rudd as his character Scott Lang, who's the Ant-Man, the most unique thing about his character is he's just a guy. Like, granted, you see in the film that he's he has a master's in electrical engineering, and he's very smart. And they even have a great scene in the movie where they show him doing a heist where he has to steal something from a vault that's made out of titanium steel that was used with the creation of the Titanic. And you see how he creatively uses his scientific skills to be able to break into that vault. And I love that. The film does a good job of letting you wait to get to know the character, to show you how good he is at being this heist, being good at robberies and thieving, and using your scientific skills to be good at a heist. And we see how Scott Lang's able to do that in this movie. We see all the other characters who are funny and interesting. We see Michael Pena as Louis. We see all the T.I. The rapper T.I. is in this movie as like this comedic side character, and it works. And you see these things, and then you see his relationship with his daughter and how he wants to be the best father to his daughter. And so the movie does tackle these relationships, and it does a good job of building these characters in the beginning of the movie throughout, to where you don't really see him be in the Ant-Man suit till, like, I'd say around close to mid half of the movie. And I admire the film for doing that, for taking its time, to not being like, no, we got to rush into him being the Ant-Man, we got to rush into all the special effects stuff now. It's like, no, let's take our time to get to know the character. Let's take our time to get to know how good he really is at what he says he can do in terms of being good at heists and stealing stuff. And it's really well done like that. And but going back, the biggest thing is, yes, he could do all these things, but he's just a guy. That's what makes this. He's just a guy. He's just a regular. He's the most regular guy in the entire MCU. He's like us, basically. He's just another guy, and he's trying to figure out how to live his life, trying to get a job after coming out of prison, and he's trying to figure out how he can basically get a job, get an apartment, and just everyday. I mean, not every day, but like just regular guy stuff. So it's interesting to see that dynamic in the MCU. We're so used to these larger than life kind of characters, and here is our main character is a guy, and it is kind of small because it's related to the character of Ant-Man, but it works. It works, and it's interesting to see all these films in the MCU with different tones, and then here's a film which is kind of like a Seth Rogen-ish kind of comedy, and with a character like Paul Rudd, who's a guy. And it works because there's comedy in that, the genuine comedy. I mean, that's why those Seth Rogen films make so much money, because people love those kind of grounded comedies. And I feel like this movie works in that way, because if that's what you're looking forward to and that's the beauty of the MCU, is they keep expanding the different kinds of movies they make. They're not all the same generic kind of movies over and over again. If you want a political spy thriller, you go see Captain America Winter Soldier. If you want to see a space opera, a weird, crazy, fun space opera, you see Guardians of the Galaxy. You want to see a team-up film, you see Avengers. If you want to see a Seth Rogen-ish comedy superhero film starring Paul Rudd as the superhero, you see Ant-Man. And that's the beauty of this film, is it knows how to be unique in its own way and tell. But of course, I mean, it goes without saying, it does follow the same 3-act structure. We have a villain. I forgot the name of the... Oh, yeah, wait, the actor's name. Corey Stoll. Yeah, you'll know him. He's in House of Cards as well. But he plays Darren Cross, or as his villain name, the Yellow Jacket. And you see that. And you see how he's kind of a common, he's kind of a generic villain, but the way Corey Stoll plays this character is very it's very tongue-in-cheek, losing himself to insanity. Like, they make jokes about how on the one hand he seems like a normal guy, on the other hand he does all these crazy, like there's a scene where he kills a guy in a bathroom. He takes a ray gun, some specific gun, and turns the guy into a very small blob of nothing that he then wipes up, throws it into a toilet, and flushes it down the drain. And the comedy is that he does that in just a very relaxed, kind of way. No one like he just keeps a regular smile on his face, regular like no sense of, oh my god, what did I just do? Just sense of, like he just had that don't care attitude, and very thinks of himself too much. But it's so funny how straight he plays this character, in terms of the fact that he does all these terrible things. Like there's another scene where he's trying to test his Yellow Jacket suit. He wants to see if he can shrink it. He wants to see if he can shrink. He can use a shrinking tech to shrink living things. So he gets a goat. So he gets like sheep, and he puts them under his laser, and he shrinks. And the first few attempts, he kills a goat, and his response, all the other characters in that scene are seeing with such sadness. They just killed a living thing. He just looks at it like, okay, well, bring in the next goat. And it's disturbing because of how straight he plays something devious that he did, but it's also hilarious how much he doesn't care about how messed up he's become and how crazy he's become. And it's funny to see him play it that way. And it's interesting because it feels like a weird everyday villain, kind of a businessman. And it's weird in that way. because he's like it's not meant to be dramatic. It's just it's funny how straight he is being with, like he's very calm and straight with how messed up the things he's done as the villain of the film, but it works. Another big thing that this film does is the way they shoot all the. This is a great film if you want to look into cinematography and learn more about macro scale shots. Because all the shots in this movie, when Ant-Man is shrunken down and he sees the world around him, is so creative. I mean, there's a beautiful scene where he's fighting the Yellow Jacket in the final act of the film, and he's fighting him on a Thomas the Tank engine track. And it's funny because when you're seeing the battle, the final battle from their point of view, it looks big and epic, and the train, Thomas the Tank Engine's coming like a huge train. And then they do a funny edit where they just cut to, it just looks like a toy train going on a track in a regular, and then just like falls off the tracks. From their point of view, it's this epic battle. From a normal human size point of view, it's just a Thomas the Tank train going on a track. And it's very funny. And that's just one example. There's many hilarious edits or cuts that in the movie that take place like that, where from their Ant-Man's point of view, it's epic and serious and crazy. And then from a normal human size point of view, it's just generic. It's not that big of a deal. And it's funny like that. It's very interesting. Michael Douglas is in this movie too, and he plays Hank Pym. And he plays the scientist who actually invented the suit and was the Ant-Man. So his character is sort of like this, I wouldn't say father figure, but more of a mentor who gives the suit to Scott Lang and gives him the opportunity and to be the Ant-Man. And Michael Douglas is great. I mean, he definitely plays off, he plays the mentor, but kind of this like kind of like a no BS kind of mentor, but not too strict. Like he knows how to maintain this tone of being a very fatherly kind of person, but also look, I'm not here to mess around. I need you to do this. I need you to break into a place. I need you to steal some stuff for me. Can you do that or not? And the way he plays that is so Michael Douglas-like, and it works, and it's great. And then Evangeline Lilly is in the movie as Hope Pym, as Michael Douglas's daughter. And she's also a really good addition to the film. And she plays an integral part to the story because of the fact that she's related to the father, and she's the one who's working undercover at Pymtech, where the villain is the CEO of the company. It's using that company to build his Yellow Jacket suit. So it's a very interesting plot because it all stems around the idea of a Mission Impossible heist kind of movie. And that's what this movie is. It's like this combination of a Seth Rogen comedy mixed with a Mission Impossible heist kind of movie. And it works. And it's very interesting. And I think that's the biggest thing that I admire about this movie is that and with the MCU is they keep doing a good job of exploring the different kinds of tones you can do with superhero films. They don't all need to be the same serious, dramatic kind of themes. They don't always have to be the same serious, dramatic kind of heroes. Sometimes the hero could just be a guy in like a comedy film, in like a Seth Rogen comedy, who's just trying to make his way in the world and trying to be a good father to his daughter and trying to get a job and pay rent. And that's your main hero. And he gets an opportunity to be Ant-Man. Sometimes you can do that kind of a tone and it can work for a superhero movie. And that's what makes this film work and what makes it separate from the other films. And why I believe that there's an MCU movie that's out there for everyone. There's an MCU show that's out there for everyone. I bet you there is like even if you're not into superhero films, I bet you I could find a superhero film or show that you would be into, because you would realize it's not just another superhero film. This is a heist film. This is a Seth Rogen comedy film. Or this is a space opera or a political spy thriller or like a team-up film or a fantasy film or etc. there's just so much variety with superhero films, especially now, that I think there's one out there for everyone. And this is a perfect example of another different, distinct, creative kind of film where they embrace the comedy of and the fact that their hero's name is Ant-Man and why this movie really works.